name is Jane Black, and to celebrate the 75th anniversary of Victory in Europe Day, I'm cooking a historical recipe, and I decided to pick a recipe. It is called Savory Lima bean scallop. I don't think I've ever actually had lima beans by themselves. Sometimes I've had a shepherd's pie that used those frozen mixed vegetables, so I thought I'd try this one because I'm over 40 now, and I think that it's time that I had a meal with lima beans in it. I found the recipe in the How to Eat Well Though Ration cookbook. It was edited by Josephine Gibson, and the byline here is Wartime Canning and Cooking Book. Now, COVID-19 is happening, and for the life of me, I cannot find dried lima beans anywhere. And that was the very first ingredient that this recipe called for. However, I did find some canned lima beans, which means I don't have to soak the lima beans for 6 to 8 hours, which would probably make a really boring video anyways. So I'm just going to pick up from soak the beans in cold water for 6 to 8 hours. Now drain and cover with boiling water. So instead of that, we're just going to be opening up these cans. I'm currently in Red Lake, Ontario, which is a gold mining town. It's actually the furthest road north, and it's just down the street from me in Koshner. And during the war, something really exciting happened for the housewives here. They got electricity. They didn't have paved roads though until about 4 or 5 years after the end of the war. So rationing was a little bit different here. And I remember talking to Trevor, who works at the museum, or maybe it was Lisa, she also works at the local museum here, and they both told me how one man did not want to pay rationing taxes, and so he lived off the land for the entirety of the war. So, those, now I have to drain them. I should rinse these. I think normally people rinse canned beans. Something else I don't think I've ever cooked is beans from a can. I've only ever used dried ones before. Let me just go rinse these off quickly. So I went and I rinsed my beans off here. So drain and cover with boiling water. Add the sliced onion and cook slowly until tender. That I can do. Which means first I have to slice my onion. One of the things about living in a northern community is it's sometimes really hard to get the things you wanted. This recipe also calls for 2 tablespoons of chopped green onion. And I have to tell you, I went to the grocery store today, and this isn't just because of COVID-19, but they had the green peppers all wrapped in saran wrap, which makes the environmentalist in me just cringe. Okay, take off this little tough part. I wonder if in wartime they would have kept that in. Maybe. I have a feeling that people used to use a lot more and not be as fussy with their vegetables and things as we are now. How does it say to slice this again? 1 small onion sliced. Okay. So let's try some fine slices here. Prior to living this, I lived in a remote flying community. I quite often had to buy my groceries 10 months ahead of time, and really limited the amount of fresh fruits and vegetables I had as well. Although the store there now does a much better job of bringing in fresh fruits and vegetables. Quite often I find when I go up to the remote flying communities, the vegetables and things are still kind of moldy. one of my best presents I ever received one year for my birthday. I had a couple of other teachers over for dinner, and the teacher who lived right next door to me, she had bought me 2 quarts of strawberries, picked out all the moldy ones, washed them off, and presented me with 1 complete bowl of strawberries. It was quite the treat for us. I think I'm really bad at slicing onions. Let's take this little part and put it in my compost. Okay. So, drain and cover with boiling water. Add the sliced onion and cook slowly until tender. I don't know if you want to watch me watch lima beans cook. I can't imagine that's the most fascinating thing that you'll do today. So I'm going to turn off the video recorder while I go put some boiling water on these and cook them till tender. All right. I had to Google because these lima beans smell not to my liking, but apparently that's okay. Lima beans are supposed to not smell the greatest. So what I did actually was, because I used canned lima beans, not dried lima beans, the lima beans were already a little tender, so I cooked the onion a little bit before, and then I added the lima beans and cooked them until they were very tender. So my next step here is drain, add salt, celery, green pepper, tomato soup, water, melted butter, pepper, and salt to taste. Okay, so while I was doing that, I probably should have been working on this stuff here. So I need 1 cup of diced celery. Diced. I don't think I've ever diced celery. I'll try this. I used to chop a lot of celery really finely. Let's try. The celery squares are not going to be that big, and to me dice usually means like celery. So I'm going to just start coarsely chopping this. Not doing a very good job of it either, because I'm videotaping myself, and why would I be relaxed while videotaping myself? I really am not liking the smell of those lima beans. I'm hoping they taste better, because it says this casserole serves 6, which means it serves 1 person 6 times. And seeing as how it's COVID on right now, it's not like I can really have anyone over to dinner and subject them to my cooking. Well, depending on how this turns out, I might not want to have them over either. Well, maybe if I didn't like them very much. It's only about a 2/3 of a cup of celery so far. Might use up all my celery on this. Celery also comes wrapped in saran wrap here in Bombertown, Red Lake area. I suppose though during the war there was a lot of times where you did end up eating things that you didn't like just because, you know, it was your duty. A lot of people, I think, with COVID-19, I've heard a little bit more of some of that talk of nationalism and doing your civic duty for others by wearing your masks and staying inside. Maybe not quite in that language, but certainly along those ideas. And it's something that someone my age, I was born in the 70s, hasn't really lived through before. Other than doing voting, nothing's really been asked of me as a Canadian. I have 2 more pieces of celery, and that's just under a cup. So I'm going to add these last 2 pieces just because. And I do like celery, so if I don't like the lima beans, at least there's A little bit more in here is something I do like. And I imagine the wartime cook too wasn't following these recipes to a T. It was sort of the same sort of thing. If they had a little bit more, a little bit less of something, they put it in there. Okay. So just a little bit more than a cup. Okay. Forgot to drain. So before I add anything, I need to drain this. Really hoping this tastes better. Really hoping this tastes better than it's smelling right now. Didn't bring my spoon over. 1 second. I've drained it. Add salt. And it's asked me for half a teaspoon of salt. So about that much, let's say. Maybe a little bit more because I'm not quite sure I like it without too much salt. Add salt, celery, and green pepper. That's another thing I should have done. Let's get the green pepper going. I'm going to mix it actually because it's getting a little bit bigger than I thought it was in this clear bowl. So pepper. Not the best thing when you're cooking for yourself with and there's no chance you're sharing it. You can eat things with your fingers. It doesn't really matter. Okay. So 2 tablespoons of chopped green pepper. So I've unwrapped my green pepper from the saran wrap it came in. Chop 2 tablespoons worth. Again, probably something that if I make another one of these videos, I might do a lot of this prep ahead of time off camera just so that there's not as much dead time for people watching. Now another thing that happened with the advent of refrigeration is that there's more fresh fruits and vegetables coming up this area. Red Lake is also known as the Norseman capital of the world. And I believe that it was in 1926 or 1936 that Red Lake had the busiest airport in the world. As I said earlier, they didn't have roads here until 1949 or 1950. So everything was brought in by plane or sled in the winter, skidoo. There was a train that came up, but not all the way up here to Bombertown, I don't think. Something for me to ask the people at the Red Lake Heritage Center. We had a really bad windstorm earlier this spring, and the roof fell off our Red Lake Heritage Center, so even if it was open right now, I couldn't go in there because they're operating out of a different facility. Not something you want to happen to your museum is have the roof fly off. Look, just like a can of sardines had been pulled right back. Alright. So, that's chopped green pepper. I'm going to go get my tablespoon measure. I have to say, so far this isn't the most attractive looking thing either. And again, I've got a little bit of extra here, so I think I'm going to put just all of it. So that'd be about 3 tablespoons instead of the 2 it asked me for. I mean, it seems sort of weird. You don't, what else am I going to do with the rest of the green pepper? Especially here where, you know, most homes at this point didn't have a fridge. So I've added the salt, celery, green pepper, tomato soup, and it's asking for 200 or 1 cup of condensed tomato soup, which, to be honest, I don't really like tomato soup either. I like tomato soup cake, and I liked meatloaf made with tomato soup, so I thought, you know, casserole made with tomato soup, I'll probably like that as well. Although these lima beans really are not growing on me. Getting a little scared that I'm going to be eating something I don't like for the next 6 suppers. Well, if I eat it for lunch too, then that's just 3 days of having to eat it all. How much is tomato soup? Okay, there's still a lot of tomato soup there, so I might save that and use it to make a sauce for breaded chicken or something. So, water, half a cup of water. And then 2 tablespoons of melted butter, which I went ahead and melted already. See, I'm doing some things ahead of time. Definitely never going to be a one of those popular chef YouTubers. Or I guess it would be YouTube chefs. One second, let me grab some water here. So we put all that together. Did say this was condensed maple tomato soup. It's kind of runny. Other than making tomato soup cake, which I haven't done in years, my aunt actually just told me she made it for the first time for her husband, and they've been married for years. Now, more salt and pepper to taste. Not quite sure I'm ready to taste this yet. So, yeah, it's not really doing much for me. So I'm thinking my taste is going to be lots and lots of pepper. Don't think that's going to be enough to cover up the taste of the lima beans. And we put salt in earlier after we drained it. It's asked me to put salt in again. So I'm going to put another little pinch in. No. Forgot that I'm dealing with lima beans. It's 2 pinches. Put into a greased casserole, which I have right here. Have my butter in my cloth. Just grease this really well. Oh, I do not want to ruin my good dish by having lima beans burned to it or stuck to it. Wouldn't that be awful? You ruin a pot for something that you absolutely hate? I'm being very negative. Maybe I'll really like this. Maybe this might be my new favorite thing. You never know. Or it might be something that I feed a company that I have to have over for dinner that I don't like. We shall see. Okay. So that's really well greased now. So pour in. Okay, you know what? The tomato soup, it's not smelling that bad anymore. Maybe that's what tomato soup does. Sort of like how you put it on skunks you put it on dogs when they've been sprayed by skunks. Maybe put it on lima beans to get rid of the smell of the lima beans, and then they taste good. I mean, smell is really associated with taste. Now the final thing that it's asking for here, I'm just sort of like leveling this out a bit, is a half cup of buttered crumbs. So, have a half cup measure. I'm going to go take my breadcrumbs that I have, my pan, some butter, melt the butter and butter these breadcrumbs. I'll be right back. So while I'm waiting for the butter to melt and the breadcrumbs to butter, I thought I'd give you a little bit of a look of what this actually looks like. Yeah, hopefully the breadcrumbs make it look a lot better. So I'm actually using more closely to maybe a half cup of breadcrumbs here. Just because, well, anything tastes better with breadcrumbs on it, right? Especially if they're buttered breadcrumbs. Okay. This is done. I'll take a picture of this before I put it in the oven. Yeah, pour it into a greased casserole, sprinkle the top with breadcrumbs, and bake in a hot oven of 400 degrees Fahrenheit for 30 minutes. bacon strips may be arranged on top of the casserole just before baking if it is to be served as a main dish. Well, I don't have any bacon, so this is what we're getting. Does it say if I should cover it or not? Doesn't say covered or uncovered. I'm going to go with uncovered just because there's the breadcrumbs on top. All right, so this is it, the finished project. And now it comes time for the taste test. You know what? It doesn't smell that bad. Yeah, it's got a cabbage roll smell to it, so I'm just going to dig in here. Oh, it's like a lot soupier. It's more of a soup than a casserole. I'm going to get a ladle here. Okay. See how this tastes. Maybe I should let it cool down a second, but wow. It's not bad. It's not good. Yeah. I think as a side dish it would be okay. Actually, I have some smoked pork chops, and I'm thinking if I use that and then have this as a side, it would be good. It's definitely not going to be a Meatless Monday meal anytime soon. But yeah, you know what? I can eat that. I can eat that as a meal tonight. So I guess it's a success. Yeah, and you know what? If I had company, I would serve them this. Company that I like, I would still serve them this. It's especially if they were vegan. I think, yeah, I'd take out the butter, put something else on instead. But yeah, no, it's okay. I think even though when I think back to the war, though, I mean there was a lot of men who died, a lot of women who died. And a lot of people who suffered a lot more hardships, so they would probably have been grateful for a meal like this. Makes me feel kind of guilty actually now that I stop to think of that, how we're so lucky, even with this pandemic on, most of us, especially in Canada, we have everything we need. We might have to be patient, we might not get the exact things we want right now, but it's nothing at all like it was when people were living with rationing or in places where they just couldn't get food at all. And certainly not like the meals that the members of our armed forces had at the front. So I think, you know, if I was a housewife back in 1943, I'd be eating this. I'd be making it, and I'd probably be glad. And I think too, knowing that by doing this, I'm having to save meat for maybe my son or my husband or, you know, a daughter who's in nursing over in Europe, that this would probably make me feel a lot better about eating something like that, knowing that it was saving meat for other people. Yeah, it's interesting. It's really hard too because a lot of things that we eat today are a lot different from 75 years ago. So my taste buds just aren't used to it. It's not anywhere near as bad as I thought it was going to be after I boiled the lima beans. I thought it was going to be really, really bad. That smell was awful, but having it simmered for a while, it was in 30 minutes at 400 degrees Fahrenheit. Yeah, it's actually nice. I think the tomato juice, or the tomato soup, which isn't something I ever really like to eat myself, has sort of mixed in the lima beans and created this sort of, you know, okay flavor. And actually, the more I eat it, the more it's growing on me. I think I'd also put some garlic in here, though, if I were to make it again. Now, if I use dried lima beans, that'd probably bring down the cost quite a bit. For me, living in Red Lake, where things are very expensive, the lima beans cost me about $8. If I could buy some dried lima beans either in Winnipeg or Thunder Bay or down in Stratford or Toronto and bring them up with me and make it that way, I think that would lower the cost quite a bit. But yeah, no, I think it's good. Give it 2 thumbs up. Well, maybe 1 thumb. We'll see how it goes. Anyways, this is from, as I said before, this is from the How to Eat Well, the Ration Cookbook by edited by Josephine Gibson. And that cookbook is available on the Wartime Canada website. You can find a link for that on the Canadian Historians of Canada website. So yeah, give it a try. I'd be really interested to know if people who actually eat lima beans, what they would think of this. Anyways, take care.